Oggi fammi vedere.
The House Transportation, Mobility, and Infrastructure Committee will come to order. Would the clerk please take attendance?
Chair Shannon.
Present.
Representatives McDonald. Here. Coleman.
Here.
Conlon.
Here.
Farhat.
Here.
Fitzgerald.
Here.
Hoskins.
Here.
Miller. Here. Outman.
Here.
Raw.
Here.
Bruck. Koontz.
Here.
St. Germain. Here. Mr. Chair, you have all members present. You do have a quorum.
Thank you. I need a motion to adopt the minutes from last meeting, May 23rd. Vice Chair Outman makes that motion. Seeing no opposition, the minutes are adopted. We're going to get started right away here. So to get things started, we have Representative Kara Hope on her bill, House Bill 4689, and joining her will be Mrs. Starr. Also from the Michigan State Police, Christina Drosty and Patrick Arena. And the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and committee members. I'm glad to be here, not glad of the circumstances, and I will tell you a little bit about why we're seeking a memorial highway, and then I will let these folks fill in some of the details about Trooper Starr and the kind of person and police officer he was. Trooper Starr tragically died in 2020. He was a constituent of mine, and the crash that he was involved in that ultimately ended his life took place in Ionia County, that's where I'm originally from. The driver was very drunk and driving very fast, and this 33-year-old trooper, a husband to Rachel, and father of 2 young daughters, sustained injuries that would take his life 3 weeks later. Since the killer has pleaded guilty to second-degree murder, as well as some other charges, and she's been sentenced to 27 years in prison. While that's some measure of justice, we would like to see Trooper Starr's service to the state memorialized with a memorial highway along 127 in Ingham County. Trooper Starr grew up in Mason, Michigan, and his wife and his parents still reside there. And I'll let Mrs. Starr fill in some of the other details, but if you have questions about the specifics of the highway, please feel free. Mrs. Starr?
Do you want to go first?
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot the order we were going in. I'm really sorry.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for allowing me a moment to express some thoughts in support of this issue, and I'd like to thank Representative Hope for bringing this bill forward. My name is Patrick Arena. I'm a trooper with the Michigan State Police. In the context of the issue at hand, I was Trooper Starr's first phase field training officer at the MSP Lakeview Post. What that means is, upon his graduation from the MSP Academy, Trooper Starr came to the post, and he and I worked a car together as I trained him on the basics of police work and taught him how to apply the lessons from the academy to real-world events. Caleb was nothing short of fantastic as a trooper and as a person. He was a quick learner, he was intelligent, he was funny, and he was personable. He had an absolute love for his wife and his girls, and he displayed a joy and excitement for his family, which any wife would be lucky to find in a husband, and any daughter would be lucky to find in a father. I was also the first trooper on the scene of the crash that ultimately took Caleb's life. From then on, that event, Caleb's death, has had a significant impact on my life. And therefore, this is a cause which is obviously of tremendous importance to me. Since the foundation of organized governments, humans have found it necessary to call upon qualified members of their populace to serve their fellow citizens in the enforcement of laws and the preservation of peace and order. Trooper Caleb Starr answered this call, serving the government, this government, and his fellow citizens in a positive, committed, and exceptional manner. I would posit to you that a roadway dedication, a sign bearing Caleb's name, is the least that this government can do in recognition of the absolute sacrifice made not only by one of its servants and protectors, but also by the family that is now without a husband and without a father. No police officer gets into this field for accolades or recognition, but Caleb and his family deserve exactly that. Thank you.
Difficult to follow that. I also wanted to say thank you to Representative Hope for all the support you've provided through this, and then everybody here for listening while I get to talk about my husband. We're approaching 3 years, and I've spoken at a lot of different events, and I've learned that notes can sometimes throw me off. So some of this is just going to be me kind of sharing how I feel about it. It's really difficult to identify a way what exactly to share about him and how to share it. There's so much, like Harina said, he was so thoughtful and kind and respectful and funny, and he just embraced life. And he was an amazing partner and an amazing father. And as I sat trying to think about what exactly I want to share, a memory popped up. And our minds are so interesting that something that you cannot think about you may not have thought about for years will just randomly pop up, and it's vivid, and you can smell the smells, and you can hear the sounds, and you just see it in your mind. And the memory that popped up this morning was took place right after, just a few weeks after Caleb and I were engaged. And it's something I've never shared in a public forum because it actually has more to do with my past and my family. But I think that it really encompasses who Caleb was as a person. My family, when I was 4, was involved in a serious car crash that left my dad with a traumatic brain injury, so severe that he struggled with delusions, paranoia, hallucinations, violence, several different mental illnesses. And when I was in college, he went missing for a year and a half. After I graduated, Caleb and I got engaged, and just a few weeks after that, I was informed that they had found my dad living in a tent under a bridge. When I told Caleb, his first response was, "Pack a bag. I'm calling in for work off, and we're going down there to get him." So we drove down to Tennessee, and it very quickly became apparent that he had been homeless the entire time. He was physically and mentally completely different, and I hadn't known what to expect. And I was caught off guard. I was concerned. I was uncertain. I had no idea what to do. And Caleb, unbeknownst to me, had gone out the night before and bought toiletries and a change of clothing because he knew that my dad would need it. And that's a memory I have so vividly when we found my dad. Caleb taking his hand and just guiding him to the car and talking gently, encouraging him to go with us to the hotel, to eat, to shower, to accompany us home back to Michigan where he could get help. He was so gentle and so thoughtful, and that's who he was at 23, and that's who he was at 33 as a trooper. If you're not already familiar with his background, he born and raised in Mason, as Rep. Hope had mentioned, and went to college wanting to enter law enforcement. And life had different plans, and he ended up in the private sector. And it wasn't until after the birth of our second child that he kind of reflected on where he was, and he was like, my dream is to serve my community. I want to make a difference in this world. And he wanted to show his girls that it was never too late to follow your dreams. It's never too late to change your course. You're never in too far or, too invested in a pension to change your mind and follow a different career. And so he sacrificed a lot to do that, to serve his community. He, at the age of 30, a married father of 2, went through a 6-month recruit school away from us Sunday afternoon through Friday night. He hated that. It was hard. It was very hard on us. It was very hard on him. He loved his girls. I mean, he was born to be a father. He worshiped the ground they walked on. They were daddy's girls through and through. And it was difficult. And but he wanted to make a difference. And when he was then transitioned out to the post, I know that he put in a lot of time, a lot of effort. As his spouse, I saw him, going in early, coming home late. He drove an hour each way, and he made sure to stop by the daycare and kiss his daughters goodbye before doing so when he worked the night shift. And he would always be willing to help people even on his time off. He had experience in insurance. I would catch him all the time taking phone calls from different victims or individuals he encountered during his daily duties who were asking questions about insurance paperwork. I mean, he was always volunteering his time to help them fill it out and to navigate that process, which can be very complicated and overwhelming when you have just been traumatized by some incident and you're just trying to survive. And he was always willing to help. He was just an amazing man, and I think he was an amazing trooper, and he was an even better father and husband. And he sacrificed a lot with his family, but I also want to make it clear he made sure to spend, when he was with us, he spent his time with us. It was all quality. He was constantly taking the girls places, to the trampoline park, to the normal park, to the ice cream parlor, to outside. I mean, he lived life to his fullest. And looking back now, I think that it was placed on his heart to do so, and he embraced it. Even so much as that Thursday, July 9th, nothing important happening. And, he took me out to lunch. He picked up his girls from daycare, took them out to the park, told me, I just want to have a water night with them tonight before I work this weekend. Let's do something fun. Let's, cook out and then watch a movie. And my last video of him with his girls was them dancing to the end credits. So I think that we lost a lot. We lost an amazing husband, an amazing father, but he lost out on the rest of his life. He lost the ability to ever walk his girls down the aisle, to watch them graduate, to take them to dances. Lost the ability to sit with me on a porch and enjoy time with grandkids. He lost a lot, and he sacrificed a lot, and he was a great guy, and I feel that he deserves to have this memorial highway. And I think that the public deserves it as well. He was a great role model. And yeah, I think that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. I just want to express our gratitude for the department, to Representative Hope, Chair Shannon, members of this committee for taking up this bill, and we ask for your support as well. Thank you.
Well, thank you, everyone, for your testimony. Thank you, Mrs. Starr, for your testimony and sharing a little bit about your husband's life. And I think I could speak for everyone up here, and we want to say thank you to your husband for his service to Michigan. So I need a motion to report House Bill 4689 with recommendation. Rep. Fitzgerald makes that motion. Will the clerk please take the roll call vote?
On the motion to report, Chair Shannon,
Yes.
Representatives McDonald,
Yes.
Coleman,
Yes.
Conlon,
Yes.
Farhat,
Yes.
Fitzgerald,
Yes.
Hoskins,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Outman,
Yes.
Roth,
Yes.
Brock, Kuntz,
Yes.
Saint Germain.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 12 yeas, 0 nays, 0 pass.
Thank you. Okay, House Bill 4689 is reported with recommendation. And I do have one card on both House Bill 4337 and House Bill 4689, which we just took up. Not wishing to speak, as neutral on the bill, Mark Polsdorfer from MDOT. Okay, next we have Sophia Richard testifying on behalf of Representative Whitwer, discussing House Bill 4337. And I hope I pronounced your name right.
Good morning, members of the committee. Thank you for having me here today. Again, my name is Sophia. I am Rep. Whitwer's legislative director here on her behalf. House Bill 4337 is a pretty simple bill. It just makes an amendment to a former bill from last legislative cycle, and it updates the road marker located within Rep. Whitwer's district. That's at the portion of Highway M50 in Eaton County, beginning at the intersection of Highway M50 and Highway I-69, extending west to the intersection of Highway M50 and Courthouse Drive, and it's to include the language of Medal of Honor recipient on that marker. Currently, the sign reads Ensign Francis Flaherty Memorial Highway, and again, want to include the Medal of Honor recipient, and I'll give you some background on who Francis was. During the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, Francis Flaherty saved the lives of his fellow crewmates by making sure that they escaped the sinking of USS Oklahoma. It was a BB-37 boat, by holding the door open when they were told to abandon ship when it was sinking. Ensign Flaherty remained in a turret, holding a flashlight so the remainder of his crew could safely escape the boat. This sacrifice of his own life is what made him become the recipient of America's highest military decoration, the Medal of Honor. So I hope that members of this committee will support this bill, and we can also include that Medal of Honor recipient on the signage of there to just honor, you know, all that he sacrificed in his life. And that's really it. Pretty straightforward. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Sophia. Doesn't look like we have any questions, so thank you so much for your testimony. I need a motion to report House Bill 4337 with recommendation. Rep. Coleman makes that motion. Will the clerk please take the roll call vote?
On the motion to report, Chair Shannon,
Yes.
Representatives McDonald,
Yes.
Coleman,
Yes.
Conlon,
Yes.
Farhat,
Yes.
Fitzgerald,
Yes.
Hoskins,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Outman,
Yes.
Roth,
Yes.
Brock, Kuntz,
Yes.
Saint Germain.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 12 yeas, 0 nays, 0 pass. The bill is reported for recommendation.
So House Bill 4337 is reported with recommendation. Moving on to testimony on I do have a card to read on House Bill 4337. Not wishing to speak, does have written testimony submitted, opposes the bill, Brendan Allen. Moving on testimony for House Bill 4012, we have Representative Slaw, joined by John Lamacchia from the MML. Gentlemen, come on up, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, for giving me this opportunity to speak in support of this important legislation. The bill excuse me. The bill in front of you will amend the Michigan Vehicle Code and help to first set up flaws within the law in setting speed limits. Secondly, it'll help to lower the costs for local speed for the local road agencies. And third, it will ensure that speed limits are not set artificially low. Under current law, one way a speed limit can be set is based on the results of a speed of an engineering and safety study by the 85th percentile speed of free-flowing traffic, and then rounded to the nearest multiple of 5 miles per hour. This language requires that in many cases, a speed limit is to be set above the 85th percentile, which actually goes against recommendations laid out in all the traffic safety manuals that road and law enforcement agencies use to design roads and establish speed limits. For example, if a speed limit, or the speed study shows that the 85th percentile speed to be 37.6 miles per hour, the law requires the speed then be set at 40 miles per hour, which is faster than the 85th percentile. This legislation would allow for the results of a speed study to be used in setting the speed limit, as opposed to also requiring an engineering and safety study, which would help to lower the costs for many communities in setting speed limits. If a road agency still wants to conduct an engineering and safety study when setting speed limits, it's free to do that. It will also correct the situation described above that requires a speed limit to be set to the nearest multiple of 5 miles per hour, and change that to a multiple of 5 miles per hour within the 5 miles per hour of the 85th percentile. In the example I described above, the speed limit would be set at either 35 or 40 miles an hour, rather than having to be rounded up to 40. It requires a speed study to be conducted on the fastest portion of a highway, rather than maybe on a curve or something else that would artificially slow it down. As an example, we just mentioned on a curve, that kind of thing. Finally, it does permit a speed limit to be reduced to not less than the 50th percentile speed should a road agency conduct an engineering and safety study and demonstrate that there are hazards to public safety that are not reflected in that kind of speed study. I have the strong support of the Michigan Association of Chief Police. I have the Michigan Municipal League, the Michigan Townships Association, and many other stakeholders who believe that the current law does not adequately protect all roadway users, and I'm hopeful that you will see the merits of this legislation and that you would provide your support. And I'd be happy to take any questions, but maybe you'd like to listen to John Lamacchia first.
Thank you, Representative Chair Shannon, members of the committee. John Lamacchia with Michigan Municipal League, here to support House Bill 4012 today. One, thank you, Representative, for your support of this and your team's work along the way. This has been a process to get to this point, to be very honest with you. I'll give you just a little bit of history on this issue. It's honestly been something I've been working on for my entire time at the League, which has been just over 10 years now. It goes all the way back to Senator Casperson and some changes that we worked with him and supported in changes to the speed limit law. And what we realized over the course of time that, words do matter, and there were a couple of words that caused some problems we were not anticipating. One of those issues we have taken care of already that dealt with residential neighborhoods and more grid-style systems within traditional urbanized cities. There's actually a Rep. Snyder bill right now out there to make an additional tweak to that, which we would support and hope this committee takes up at some point. And then this particular change, which when in 2016, when we worked to help Senator Casperson pass the original law, the idea was to provide some flexibility to municipalities around the 85th percentile of speed and get down potentially to that 50th. Now, in reality, the difference between the 85th and 50th is not drastic. I mean, it sounds like a lot, but in many cases it is not drastic. And so working within a system that allows us that flexibility is really key. So as the senator mentioned, the most important part of this, when we look at an 85th percentile speed study, is to have that flexibility to be within rather than the nearest, because as he said, the nearest could really push you above the 85th percentile. And then secondary to that would be to allow us the contextual look at the local level. So we have to recognize that sometimes when we talk about speed limits and the setting of speed limits, we think all roads are created equal. They are not. So there is a big, big difference between a limited access freeway and what we drive on maybe to get to work for some of you, sometimes long distances, versus a neighborhood street or a main street. And so recognizing that contextual difference becomes really, really important how we do this. This would allow that engineering and safety study to take place, allowing for that consideration, and do so based on that engineer's experience. But why is this important, and why would we support a change like this? I think, one, we have cited previously, the National Transportation Safety Board has recognized that the 85th percentile of speed is not the end-all, be-all, that there can be some unintended consequences by looking at that as the only factor that is included, and that we should allow transportation and traffic engineers to systematically incorporate things like crash statistics, geometry of roadways, and roadway users, whether they be on a bike or a pedestrian or otherwise. And that particularly in more urbanized areas, considering those factors becomes really, really important, getting to what the department has stated their goal of their Towards Zero Death campaign. And I think that's a goal that we all have. We do not want to see fatalities or serious injuries on our roadway. And what the department does is they incorporate a safe system approach to this, which is really a human-centered, holistic approach to looking at the way in which we both design our roadways, set our speed limits as a way in which to reduce traffic crashes and ultimately deaths. Speed limits is one component of that, and we would appreciate your support today, and we'll be happy to take any questions that you have.
Thank you so much. Representative Roth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Of course, I have a question. Representative Slaw, I want to make sure I heard it right. Your raising of the speed limit or lowering the speed limit would be the same situation where a speed study or engineering study, both? I don't know if I heard that exactly right.
This legislation would say that it only requires a speed study to do that.
Okay.
Where up till now, it requires both a speed study and an engineering study. So this would actually lower the cost potentially of setting a new speed limit.
Excellent. Thank you for the clarification. Appreciate it.
Representative Conlon.
Yeah, just wondering when the speeds get changed, and just thinking of myself, when all of a sudden you enter a new speed area that you've known to be something else, how does the enforcement work? Is there some sort of grace period? Do we know the effect? I mean, just because suddenly you might be going faster than you should in an area that you live in, perhaps.
Yeah, so I'll take that and look at it from a couple of angles. One, we have to consider that there are different jurisdictions, right? So you may go from a state road to a county road to a local road. And typically in those cases, we try to work with the other jurisdiction. You will develop signage that will let you know that the speed is being reduced. So if you think about, coming into a smaller community off of a county road, you'll likely recognize that the speed will go from maybe 55 or 45 down to 25 or 35. You will have warning signs in which do that. The other aspect of this is if you think about a road that is under a consistent jurisdiction, and I'll talk actually outside the city and village boundaries for a second, but if you think about limited access freeway for MDOT. There are certain design features to that may put you in a curve, right? And that curve may be identified as you should go at a lower speed rather than 70 or 75. It might say 60 or 65. Those are the things that this bill continues to allow to take place. So when the language really references, in here the idea that it's in accordance with traffic engineering practices and provide an objective analysis of the characteristics of the highway, that's trying to take those things into account. So there's a couple of ways in which to look at it depending on jurisdiction and who ultimately is interacting with one another.
Did that answer your question?
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your testimony. Continuing with House Bill 4012, we have Matt Pennyman with the League of Michigan Bicyclists, and Matt would like to speak.
Thank you very much, Chair Shannon, members of the committee. Representative Slaw and Mr. Lamacchia did a great job of explaining this bill from a technical perspective. I'd just like to say a few words from a bicyclist perspective of why this is urgently needed. I spoke with someone this morning who recently moved from Chicago to Michigan, and she went from not having to drive very much to, driving a lot, and took a driving class to kind of brush up on her skills. And she told me that her instructor told her that to be safe, she should plan to drive about 10 miles per hour over the speed limit. Now, the 85th percentile rule assumes that if you do a speed study, you will find that 85% of drivers will drive below the speed limit, that only 3 out of every 20 will drive above. Now, I think most of us have had an experience of driving where it's not the case that only 3 in 20 people are driving above the posted speed limit. Hope the MSP troopers didn't hear that. So those two facts are kind of in opposition to each other, and we see the results, unfortunately, in the number of people that have been killed while walking and biking in our state. Over the past 10 years, we've seen it go from 29 in 2013, 21 in 2014, 34 in 2015, 33 in 2016. We had a good run in 2017, 2018, and 2019. It was only 21 or 23 deaths those years. But then in the pandemic, we saw it shoot up. In 2020, 38 people were killed on Michigan roads while bicycling. 2021, there were 29. Last year, we don't have final numbers, but we think it was 35. So we've seen a significant jump, and we need to do more to keep people safe. The U.S. Department of Transportation has recognized we're in the midst of a national roadway safety crisis. They've implemented a national roadway safety strategy. A key component of that is safe speeds, because we've seen that the risk of death for people walking rises sharply, even as you go from 20 miles per hour to 40 miles per hour. At 20 miles per hour, there's only an 8% chance you'll be killed if you're hit by a car while walking. At 30 miles per hour, it's 20%. At 40 miles per hour, 46%. So even a small difference in speed, like this 5 mile per hour difference we're talking about in this bill, makes a big difference in survivability for a crash. Seattle has tried reducing speeds in their urban area, and they found a pretty significant reduction in crashes, 17% overall and 20% reduction in the downtown area on their arterial roads. So we know that these kinds of changes can make a difference in reducing crashes, in helping people survive if they are in a crash. I want the next generation to grow up with safer streets. We heard the story of Trooper Starr's life and his children growing up without a father. I want them to grow up without having to fear death in a traffic crash if they're walking or biking. That's a big lift, but the way to eat the apple is one bite at a time. And I think this bill is a good bite. Happy to take any questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Pennyman. Have to read in a card. Does wish to speak, opposes the bill, Vince Consiglio. Oh, I'm sorry, of Abate of Michigan. Come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, sorry for apologize for my appearance. Normally I would wear a tie if I was speaking before a committee, if I knew what was up, but I just saw this bill come up and thought it was important. As the president of Abate of Michigan, we believe in freedom of the road. We have no problem with the current system as how the speed limits are decided. Living in a rural area of Oakland County, our speed limit has been been adjusted several times. It's 55. 55 on a dirt road. And several times the speed limit has changed, and then several times the speed limit has gone back to what it is. So I believe that the current system is in place for a reason. It's cost effective. It allows the county to decide more so than the township what the speed limit is, and that the current system works well as far as traffic. So I would oppose the bill because a lot of times people think just going slower makes it safer. It's the quality of driving in general in the state has gone down as far as driver's training, safety, et cetera, and that's the responsibility of the parents and drivers themselves to be safer. It's not the responsibility of the state in this situation to lower the speed limit, because that affects all drivers, and we oppose the bill. Any questions? Thank you.
Doesn't look like there is. Thank you so much for your testimony. I do have some other cards to read in. Matt Saxton from the Michigan Sheriff's Association does not wish to speak, supports the bill. Stephanie Johnson of the Michigan Association of Chiefs of Police does not wish to speak, supports the bill. Mike Spence of Southeast Michigan Council of Governments, SEMCOG, does not wish to speak, supports the bill. John Fournier from the City of Ann Arbor does not wish to speak, supports the bill. And finally, Matt Batterby from the Michigan Township Association does not wish to speak, supports the bill. And I have Trooper Christina Drosty of the Michigan State Police does not wish to speak, is neutral on the bill. And we have a card that just came in. Ed Noyola from the County Roads Association does wish to speak on the bill. Ed, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm really torn here. We believe in safety. We want safety on the roads, obviously. But the bill is going to create problems with county roads when we approach a city or a village with a much slower speed. 50% percentile doesn't sound like a lot when you're talking about a speed limit at 40 or 35. It's not a lot. But when you're talking 55 and then you're going to drop down to maybe 30, that's a big difference. So first of all, we're going to have to prepare the driver to start slowing down. So we're going to have to put some 10-mile progression speed limits reduction signs up in order to accommodate that much lower speed limit if it's down to 30 or 25 or whatever the case may be in an urbanized area. That's going to cost us money and cause a little havoc with the driving community. They're used to driving at a certain speed limit. They drive what's comfortable. That's what that 85th percentile is what is their comfort zone, what is a realistic driving speed for those corridors that they're on. That being said, it also kind of puts it in a urbanized area. So let's focus on the urbanized area. Let's call it what it is. If you want an urbanized area to be able to do this, then say it in so many words. Don't change the way the county roads use the system. We like the speed study that's we've been using for decades. It works for us. I think it works for the public. It works for state police. If I'm not mistaken, they can speak on it themselves. But I think it's a good system. It's a good, fair system that looks at multiple things, not just speed. We have to look at the characteristics of the road. We have to look at the driving habits of the public. So that being said, I'm willing to take any questions.
Anybody have questions for Mr. Noyola? Doesn't look like Ed.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so much. Okay. So there be no further business before the committee. The committee will stand adjourned.